We're live on YouTube.
Yeah, sorry, YouTube.
Old men figuring out how to use technology. It's fun. So fun. Oh boy.
All right, let's get my ducks in a row here on my phone.
Yeah, that's all I'm doing. Getting the stuff together, setting up. We're going to be recording the show here in a minute. For those on YouTube who checked in, thanks for checking in on YouTube, following us on the live. Also, we're sorry that you checked in on YouTube and you're following us on this live. When Treg mentioned bloopers on Twitter, he meant it. This whole show is just one giant blooper reel.
Okay, we're good.
All set?
I think so. As set as I'm ever going to be.
Okay. Welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 272. I'm your host, Blaine Putney, and I'm joined by my co-host, Treg Wilson.
Good morning.
So we are recording live on YouTube on August 21st at 11:30 Atlantic, 10:30 Eastern. And this week, a couple things happened. Nothing that would help the franchise shape itself for the next 2 to 3 years. Not like a trade or a franchise goaltender essentially ending his career. Nothing like that.
Well, according to Chantal Maccabi, they're not talking retirement right now.
Well, we'll get into the Carrie Price stuff later. What I wanted to do was start with the trade. So the Canadians go out and spend 27 hours trading for Sean Monahan from the Calgary Flames. Now, it was announced that he was going to Montreal, but nobody knew for what and what was going back and forth or anything for about 6 hours after the trade. And judging by the conditions that were attached to that first round pick that are going to Montreal from Calgary, so that Montreal would take Monahan's contract, that made sense.
It did. Those conditions are they were put in place by NASA using the top geniuses of our time to sort it all out. So I think that's what took a lot of time figuring out, because if we'll get into what the conditions are, but if the pick goes one way, then there's other conditions on top of the Florida pick. So they had to really dive into this big conspiracy theory, mathematical equation of conditions. Cap Friendly was really busy. This
is essentially what it would be if you were to write conditions for a trade to put on the show Ancient Aliens on History Channel.
I think they had to go to the pyramids and read the hieroglyphics to see what the conditions were from, back in 686 BC.
Well, that is one of the conditions. That's how you do it's a scavenger hunt. You find some ancient alien technology in Egypt, then you Indiana Jones your way over to some random crevice in Africa to take you to Australia, and then you fly to, I don't know, some temple of doom where you rip some guy's heart out of this chest, but inside the heart there's another note that takes you back. It's just one of those things.
What that brings me up to a question. What Montreal Canadiens player would make a good Indiana Jones?
A little off topic. Out of left field. I like it. Good Indiana Jones. It's a tough one. Who looks good in a fedora?
I'm going to go with Josh Anderson.
Okay.
Actually, he's more of a Chris Pratt, I would think. I think he's more of a he's more of a
Guardian of the Galaxy type.
Yeah. I don't know. That'd be a good one. Can't be Gallagher. He's too short. Ooh, yeah.
I can see him swinging along around something with a whip.
Yeah. I think you're right. Chris Weidman. That's a good choice.
He's more of that workaday look.
Yeah. And Cole Caulfield could be short round.
Yes, you can. All right, so a little bit back on topic. All right, so the Canadians pick up Sean Monahan. They pick up a first-round pick along with Sean Monahan, and unfortunately, the Canadians had to give up something very special, something that's near and dear to all our hearts, and that is future considerations. I just want to say thank you to Future Considerations for everything he's done for the franchise. We are going to miss you.
It's a huge loss.
Always be in our hearts.
It's a huge loss.
It is, yeah.
I had my Future Considerations jersey, like I just got a couple weeks ago, and
I hate when that happens.
Now he's gone. Actually, technically, every jersey I have, except for my new Suzuki one, they're pretty much all gone now. So,
what can you great do? Kiss of death. Thanks. All right. So on to the conditions. I'm going to read these things because I'm going to be honest. I'm still trying to figure it out. It's been a couple of days. I'm still trying to nail down how this is going to work. But essentially, the Canadians get a first-round pick. It's just not going to be 2023. So first condition.
It could be.
No.
Oh, I thought it could be.
No, it can't. No, it can't. Right. This was all basically so that Calgary can protect their 2023 pick. All right. Okay, everyone set aside a couple hours. This is going to be a while. Get a coffee, maybe a beer. It's better if you know what? You're better to be drunk to listen to this. I should have been drunk to read this. But anyway, first condition. In the event Calgary's own 2024 first is selection 20 to 32 inclusive, following the determination of the 2024 NHL draft lottery results, then Montreal shall have the option, exercisable until 48 hours prior to the start of the 2024 draft, to exchange the conditional 2025 or 2026 first round choice to become Calgary's own 2024 first round choice. So basically, the Habs can choose to have a 20 to 32 pick in 2024. If Florida's 2025 first round choice transfers to Calgary pursuant to the conditions on that earlier trade, so you're going to have to do an addendum Annex A to go research that. I'm not going to go through it. So Canadians can only pick that pick if Calgary holds it.
I have it here. It's
okay, go ahead.
If it's lottery protected, so if Florida is a lottery team at the conclusion of the 24-25 season, Calgary receives Florida's 2026 first round pick.
Which takes us to condition number 2. In the event the conditions to trigger Montreal's option, as noted in condition 1 above, does not occur, or Montreal declines to exercise this option, the following conditions will prevail. A, if both Calgary's own 2025 first round choice and Florida's 2025 first round choice, as previously acquired by Calgary, are not in the top 10 selections of the 2025 NHL draft following the determination of the 25 draft lottery results, then Montreal shall receive the either one of the two stated choices, or B, if Calgary's own 2025 first round choice is a top 10 selection and Florida's 2025 first round selection, previously acquired by Calgary, is outside of the top 10 following the determination, blah, 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 Montreal shall receive Florida's 2025 first round choice. So essentially, if Montreal turns down the 2024 pick in the following year, Calgary's pick is in the top 10, but Florida's isn't, Montreal gets Florida's pick. If both are outside the top 10, then Montreal gets Calgary's pick.
Or isn't it the highest pick?
The higher of the two picks, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Now, further onto that, if Florida's 2025 first round choice does not transfer to Calgary, if in the event the conditions to trigger that transfer doesn't occur, if Florida's own 2025 first round choice is not in the top 10 selections, holy geez.
No, it has to be in the top 10 to not transfer.
It has to be in the top 10.
Yeah.
Okay, if Calgary's own, holy shit, this is long. How can you tell a lawyer wrote this shit? My God. Okay, if Florida's own 2025 first round choice is not in the top 10 of the 2025 NHL draft, and Florida's 2025 first has been transferred to another NHL club, and Florida's 2025 first round draft position is better than Calgary's 2025 first round draft position, then Calgary's will transfer their own 2025 fourth round choice to Montreal. So essentially, if Calgary finishes, I think they get the top 10, they don't have Florida's pick. Montreal gets their following season's first round choice plus a fourth. If Calgary's own 2025 first is a top 10 selection, Montreal shall receive Calgary's 2025 first round choice subject to the following conditions. The first round selection, first round selection, if it is first overall in the 2025 NHL draft, following determination, blah, 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 if they win the lottery, Calgary will retain that choice, and Montreal shall receive Calgary's own 2025 third and a conditional 2026 first round choice. Montreal shall receive the better of Calgary's 2026 first or Florida's 2026 first. Holy shit. So essentially, they got to pick somewhere in the next 50 years, and it's either Calgary's or Florida's. And if it's anything but first overall, they have a shot at it. Unless it's Florida's, then it's anything outside the top 10.
They have a shot of it if Calgary in 2025, if Calgary's at the bottom 10. Unless it's first overall. So if it's second overall, they still get the pick.
Yeah. So the best case scenario is for Montreal to wait out until 2025, have Calgary take a giant dump in the 24 season, finish in the top 3 and get that pick. No problem.
Either way, in 2025 or 2026, Montreal gets a first round pick.
Or 2024.
Right.
They can choose 2024. Yeah.
So if Calgary, say, finishes out of the playoffs next year and they're a top 20 pick, Montreal can say, oh, well, we'll take that pick. And we're picking top 20.
Yeah. Essentially, they were paid a first round pick somewhere in the next couple of years. And this was done to protect the 2023 draft pick for Calgary, because it's fairly clear now that the NHL GM see 2023 as a very deep prospect pool. Correct. So nobody wants to give up those picks right now.
Which will be interesting. We're going to get into this later, the trade deadline.
Yeah. So sticking with the Monahan deal.
Yeah.
So Monahan is now with the Canadiens. He has had a wrist surgery, both hips surgically repaired in back-to-back seasons. I think it was his left hip this past April. He had his press conference, and he mentioned that he is in the best physical shape that he feels he's been in several years. So the expectation is that he will be able to play sometime in early November. I mean, Canadiens aren't expected to do anything good this year. I mean, outside of picking in the top 10, the expectation is not there. So he's coming into the perfect scenario for someone coming off a major injury.
He is. He can slide in easily. There's no pressure on him. There's no, just come in. I believe he's going to be there, and this is just my thought, to help Doc in the center position. I don't think he's staying with the team. I know first he's going to miss the first month of the season, maybe the first month and a bit. Okay. Unless he comes back a little early, but I've read the same thing. It looks like early November is when he's going to be due to come back. There's 5 centers that Montreal has, so someone's moving to the wing. However, there's also 37 wingers. So,
Yeah.
you know, Paul Byron's going to be out to at least Christmas, maybe the entire year. We're not sure where his hip, we're actually not even sure where Byron is. There's been no word, but we know his hip's bad. So,
Yeah, my expectations he's out probably until Christmas time, judging by what he had done.
Yeah, I figure it's the same as last year, out till Christmas, and then after Christmas we'll see where he's at. So Montreal really has a logjam at wings, and now they have a logjam at center, something that they didn't have last year at center. They had not enough centers, so now they have too many. But I think Monahan, I think it's a good move by Montreal, an expiring contract. So they're not obligated to any more years after this year. There's $6 million over the cap, but Price's LTIR and Byron's LTIR is going to cover that. So they're not too worried about that. They still got to sign Doc. Primo got to be signed, but his money would be buried in the AHL anyway, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, I believe Monahan's there to help Doc along. He's insurance in case Doc, because we know Doc has an issue with faceoffs. He was 38%.
And I think that was more physical. That was more physical because of his wrist. They rushed him back.
Correct.
Now with an off season, maybe that's improved.
But I mean, if you have Monahan working with Doc, maybe throw him on the same line. You know, you can, you know, if Doc's struggling at the faceoff circle, you throw Monahan and throw Doc, because Doc did play wing for the Chicago at the end last year. But I think they want Doc to be their center. They want to develop him as a center, and I think it's good to have a good defensive faceoff center to guide him along. I think that's a great idea.
Now with Monahan, the best case scenario is that he comes back 100% healthy and he starts to produce again. Now, by produce, I don't mean the 80-point center that he used to be. I'm talking more like a 50 to 60-point guy. I think that's the best case scenario, absolute best case. At that point, the choice is, do you flip him for another first-round pick, or do you keep him on a long-term deal? I mean, I noticed a lot of people on Facebook saying, hey, we got a center, let's keep him. But let's pump the brakes.
They're not going to grab an expiring contract so they can extend him, especially a guy who's going to turn 29. He's 28 this October. He'll be 29 next October to start the season. He's hitting his 30s. He's going to want at least a 5-year contract. At least, right?
Yeah.
So now you're looking at a guy that you're going to have an injury-prone center who's not what he used to be, playing until he's 34, or signed until he's 34, if it's a 5-year contract. At $6 million, he's going to have to take a pay cut no matter where he goes. It's not really going to be. Yeah, but if he has a lights out season, he's like, hey, I'm back. My injuries are over. I'm the same guy I used to be. It's just Montreal right now has too many 28 and over guys signed to long-term contracts. They don't need another one.
No. And I think the whole idea of this move is essentially asset management. They got paid a first to take on the contract.
Yeah.
If they rehabilitate him and he's doing well, I would say it's 99.9999% sure that they flip him at the deadline. Now, I'm leaving a little bit of leeway there, and not very much, that they sign him to keep him, just because, you know, life is unpredictable. But let's be honest, the more obvious decision is to flip him.
It's the same as the Dadonov scenario. They got Dadonov from Vegas just so they can have assets to trade at the deadline. They're in a rebuild. They're not looking at, they're assessing the players they have now. They don't have any room to keep any almost 30-year-old players if they want to bring in their young guys in. You have Jan Mysak, who's probably closer to the NHL than everyone realizes. He's a center. You got Jake Evans. You got Doc. You got Suzuki, right? You got Dvorak. So, I mean, Dvorak's 26. He's, he's still in his prime. So you already have 5 centers possibly next year. Throwing another 6-1 who's close to 30 just doesn't make any sense for a rebuilding team.
And also, you think about it, the 2023 draft in the top 10, the top 10 right now projected out of those 10 first top 10 picks, 7 of them are centers.
Yeah.
So it's very likely that the Canadians add another center to their prospect pool, someone who's maybe a year or two away. So why would you try to jam it up? Not to mention, you look like you mentioned the log jam back forward. Why keep these guys when you have people in the minors that you can just call up?
Exactly. I mean, you have guys, you have wingers now like Armia and Huffman, and that you're looking for people to take them. Like, we need room here. Like, how's a guy like Ylonen or Massar, the other first round pick there?
Massar, yeah.
Massar. You get Ylonen, Massar, Harvey Pinard. You got these guys that are going to be looking for spots in the NHL, and there's just no room for them. There's absolutely no room. So I don't see it. I just don't see the logic in extending even if Monahan breaks out and has an 80-point season over 70 games or whatever it will be. I just don't see them keeping him. I just don't.
That's assuming that he is willing to sign a contract with the Canadians to stay on board during a rebuild. If he does break out, a decent season, shows that he's healthy again, you kind of have to flip him. I mean, that's your best case scenario. The next mid-range scenario is he's meh. He's just kind of meh. He's good on face-offs. He can help the younger guys. He spends the bulk of the season helping out there, but he's not really producing all that much. Well, you still flip him at that point. You get whatever you can for him. Whatever that may be, it doesn't matter. You just move on. So now you pick up 2 assets for future considerations. Again, we're going to miss you.
Yeah. And this, like you said, and I've said, and I've argued it with a couple people on Twitter who still think if he has an excellent season, we need to extend him. I don't see I don't get it. I don't get that logic. Because the assets he's going to bring, especially if you can get an extra 2023 first round pick, because the 2023 first round pick, mind you, we say this every year, the 2023 first round pick is going to be deep, and it's not just the top
until we get to April, and it's going to be horrible.
Yeah, well, actually, they've been saying for the past 2 years now that this is going to be a deep draft. There's and we're not just talking 10 to 15, we're talking almost the entire first round is going to be good picks. So, Montreal's just going to pile up on young prospects. Now, I don't think they're going to go after draft picks for everyone they get rid of. I think we're going to get into that later, but if they can get 1 or 2 more first round picks, I mean, that's something Bergevin didn't do. Bergevin never really got first round picks. He got a lot of second round picks and third round picks, but he was never able to manage
sixth
and fifth. Yeah, but he was never able, Bergevin got 13 picks, and but they're all second round and below. He still only had that 1 first round pick, but it looks like they want to do the rebuild correctly. And if they want to do the rebuild correctly, signing on a almost 30-year-old injury prone guy to an extension is not the way to do it. It's poor asset management.
I agree. I agree. And here's the worst case scenario for this deal. Worst case, he comes back, he plays like absolute garbage. Monahan can't do anything. He is essentially a $7 million fourth line winger. He's on an expiring contract, and it's a team that it just really isn't expecting to do much. So there's no damage.
And they didn't give up anything for him. Matter of fact, they gained a first round pick. And I think that's why they wanted the first round pick in the deal. In case Monahan doesn't play, maybe his hip, maybe his injury's a lot worse.
Yeah.
Or maybe he has a setback and he doesn't play. And 2, if he plays and he's trash and he just doesn't get it going, they're like, well, see ya. Good luck in the off season.
Yeah. We just did Calgary a solid to take on that cap hit, which I want to point out. Brad Treliving has done an amazing job this summer.
Oh,
unbelievable.
1 week he lost everyone, and the next week he gained it all back.
I mean, he's no Kyle Dubas, but he's done a great job.
He did give up a first to get rid of a guy, though. Kyle Dubas has done that twice.
Yeah, but when he did it, what was he picking up in return?
He was
wasn't
picking up
Kadri.
He was picking up Kadri. When Kyle Dubas did, he didn't pick up anything.
He was doing it so he can keep the guys on his roster.
Yeah, exactly. No one would be good for Toronto. Instead of having an $11 million Tavares, they could have a $7 million Kadri.
And a $4 million defenseman.
Yeah.
Or winger.
Yeah, just throwing that out there.
Or $4 million to fill their bottom six. You know, technicalities. I'm not saying that watching them fail in the first round every year has been absolutely hilarious, but no, I'm saying that. I'm saying it's been funny, and I'm hoping it continues. But anyway, good on Brad Treliving for what he has done. I think he has extended their window from going from playoff disappointment and losing two key pieces to what they have now on hand. I think they're better.
I think they are too. Their center is going to be, well, they got Kadri, so yeah. I guess they're if not better, they're at least the same. What hurt them in the playoffs
better on the wing.
What hurt them in the playoffs was defense and goaltending, which was shocking because Markstrom's a good goalie.
Yeah,
he just had a bad playoffs. Like he couldn't stop a beach ball, which was good for Edmonton because neither could Mike Smith. So yeah, that's all that happened to them. So if Markstrom can return to form in the playoffs like he was in the regular season, they have a chance. They have a chance to be a contender.
Especially in the West, it's kind of wide open right now. You know, Colorado's taken a little bit of a step back, not a huge one, but a little bit. So that opens things up for Calgary a bit. Vegas has no goaltending.
I don't know what Vegas is going to do.
You know what? I hope they lose, but finish just outside the top 10 because finish 15th because they deserve it. All right. So back to the Canadians. We're going to talk a little bit about the deadline. But before we do, when you're acquiring a great tasting beer, check out Boxing Rock's Puck Off Lagered Ale. Boxing Rock is a brewery based out of Shelburne, Nova Scotia. If you are anywhere near an NSLC and soon a New Brunswick Liquor Commission or PEI, you'll be able to pick up a case of a delicious Boxing Rock Lagered Ale, which really, really helps you finish off that beer league hockey game where you got your pocket picked and some really young punk made you look like absolute garbage. Puck Off Lagered Ale makes you forget that for a moment. Also, No Name Hockey. If you want to have custom equipment that makes you slightly better, not faster, but a better shot at the very least, and look good, No Name Hockey can provide you the custom equipment that you need at very low prices. So check them out. No Name Hockey. Use Habs 10 to get a 10% discount. Now, trade deadline. Sell.
Well, they have 5 expiring contracts at the trade deadline. At least 3 of those, under the proper conditions, can bring you a first round pick. 2 for sure.
So
Dadonov, who consistently plays at a third line, consistently is a top third line player who can pop up in the top 6 when you need be. He can score you 20 goals.
Guy.
He's responsible defensively. He'd be great for any team in the playoffs. I'm not saying he's a first round, but if Lehkonen can get you a top prospect, a first round type prospect, Dadonov can as well.
Yeah, I can see that if he's on his pace. Yeah.
Yeah. Jake Allen. The goaltending
First,
situation in the NHL. Well, look at the goaltending situation in the NHL right now. Dallas is looking for a goalie. Arizona's looking for a goalie. Vegas is looking for a goalie. Even though my last article I said Nashville Predators, I meant Vegas Golden Knights. Um, Vegas is desperate. Come the trade deadline, with injuries and slumps and stuff not working out, a goalie is going to be a high asset going into the playoffs. This is probable, could bring in a first round pick. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying
with the right conditions.
With the right conditions. And then, of course, you have Monahan, depending on how well he plays. Like I said, if he returns to form, even if he's a 50-point guy who's 52 to 55% in the faceoff dot and responsible defensively, he could fetch a first round pick. The thing is I don't see Hughes getting all first round picks.
No.
Or even if he has a chance to, I don't see him trying to get, because no one, I'll tell you right now, even the playoff contending teams don't really want to give up their 2023 first round pick.
No, and that's why I'm thinking maybe if he can get a first in 24, sure. But I think he'll probably be leaning towards picking up the first round pick type prospects like he did with Barry.
Correct. Yeah. And I that's what I think as well. I think he may go after one first round pick just to have the, what do they have? 2 first round picks now in 2023?
Montreal? Yeah.
Yeah. Cause they have theirs in Florida's, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they can get a third, that'd be great. However, 2 first round picks. I mean, what Arizona had 3, I think last year, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
If they can get 2, 3, perfect, and then go after, A type prospects, or even a second round pick with a B type prospect but if they go, I see a lot more of the Barron scenario than I do of the first round pick scenario going into the next year's trade deadline.
Yeah, I can see if Monahan's healthy getting something that high, because he's a guy that consistently, when he's healthy, he attacks the middle of the ice. He's able to play on the power play in a bumper position, plays net front. So those little things can help him up his value. It's players like Drew Lang that I'm really, really wondering what they can get for him. Like, can they, if he's healthy, get as much as a second round pick or more?
It depends. Again, it depends on how if Druin's healthy. Now, the last 2 seasons, Druin's been missed a lot of time, but he was on a 50-point pace. Each of the last 2 seasons, if he played a full 82-game schedule, he's around 50 points. And for his career, he's a 48-point average on 82 games. For $5.5 million, that's actually on par for today's NHL. It's basically on par.
But the thing is, he's got to be healthy for them to get him to get anything from him.
Now, he says he's ready for next season. His wrist will never be the same, so he has to change the way he plays a bit because of his wrist. Again, it's a Monahan situation. If Drouin plays with all his skill and he's lights out, and say he gets a 60 to 70 point season, you're looking at first round high draft pick type ass. Now, this is ass. I'm not saying that's what they're going to get for him, but the least they're going to ask for it. Or maybe even a young NHL established player who's, around 25. Right-handed defenseman would be nice. So again, it's all, if all these players play lights out, you have a potential for 4 first round picks if you want to ask for them. You're not going to get it, but you have the potential for that. But even in the worst case scenario, like you said, they walk at the end of the season and you continue on.
Yeah, there's a lot of youth that's going to be moving up here really soon. The Canadians have a ton of draft assets. I mean, they got 5 first round picks in the next 3 years. I think 11 top 90 picks overall in those 3 drafts. So you put in 42 already previously drafted prospects. Some of them are going to be on the NHL roster this year. I mean, it's not like the rebuild isn't already a little bit advanced. So maybe it's time to start. Oh, and whatever they get, they can use later on in trades to get what they need. So you're not targeting, right-handed defenseman in a deal. Just get whatever you can, the best possible thing you can, and then try and get one later with some of those assets.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to draft every pick. We didn't think they would draft as much as they did last year, but hey, whatever, they did.
Yeah.
And going forward, I think Montreal, I'm looking at 3 years, this being year 2 for Montreal to the third years when I think they're going to start taking that step forward to the playoffs. Like, I'm not saying they're going to be a contender in 3 years. I'm saying that's when it's the same as the New York Rangers scenario. The New York Rangers pretty much started putting everything together the third year. And I don't see Jeff Gorton that it's working for Rangers. So why would Gorton started that rebuild? Why would he do something different here in Montreal? But then again, it all depends on the young guys coming up. Slavoski and Caulfield and Suzuki start killing it. Primo ends up being that goalie we thought he was going to be. Gooley, Harris, and Barron all take that step this year and show, our defense isn't as bad as we thought it was. You never know. You never know.
Even if they don't just suddenly step in and become these things right away, if they're showing the progression towards that, I think that's the main goal this year. I mean, they kept St. Louis is apparently really motivating the guys towards that goal. Yeah. They hired Robidas, who is a player development director for the Leafs. It seems to be the direction that the Canadians are taking, and it's to focus on development. Now, on the NHL roster, we should take a look at the line combos. What do we think they're going to be? So why don't we start with the defense, because that's going to be fairly simple in comparison, because there's fewer defense.
I think you're going to have Matheson, Savard as your first line.
I can see that. Could puck mover and a stay-at-home guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Edmondson, and I want to say Barron, but I wouldn't be surprised if Barron's in Laval as well. So it'll be him and maybe Schooneman, maybe if he makes the team. And then your fourth pairing, I think, will be Harris / maybe Gooley with Weidman. That's what I think it's going to be.
Yeah. If Barron is being sent to Laval for more time, I can see Schooneman being the fill-in, because St. Louis seemed to really like him last season. And he's a guy that organizationally, whether he does well or not, he's essentially a fill-in. He is there to mark time. I think Weidman is an interesting player in that they kept him. He could help the power play. He could. I mean, he put up some decent points last year, but he's a guy who he had to battle his way back to the league. He doesn't have the traditional talent. The guys that make the NHL usually have this one outstanding skill or multiple skills. And with him, nothing really sticks out. He's more of a guy that he's a work-a-day kind of player, a lunch pail guy. He works hard. So that's the kind of thing you want the young guys to see, the young guys to emulate. So I think that's an interesting player to keep on the roster. And pairing him up with a young guy like Gooley or Harris, whoever stays, I think could work out, especially on that third pair where they're not exposed to top players. Maybe throw them in on the power play. Ease the young guys in.
I mean, and when it comes to the young guys, I think you're going to see a lot of rotation. You're going to between Laval and Montreal, unless Harris or Barron or Gooley, one of them just starts right from the get-go being there. But I see a lot of, like, I'll see, if Harris is in and Gooley's not, I see Gooley going to Laval maybe and then Barron will come up and he'll get a few games in, and then, but they don't need to be wavered. They don't need to be anything. It'll just be a matter of, let's get maybe even our Arbor Jackeye gets a few games in when he comes up.
Yeah.
Last year he had an excellent camp for Montreal. He was just wasn't. They wanted to send him to the OHL for more development, which was the right move. But this year, who knows? Maybe he, if he can catch up to the speed of the NHL, he could be your Romanov replacement with a little bit less offensive skill, but because he can hit. He's not afraid to drop the gloves. He's not afraid to, but he got some, what's the word I'm looking for? Not attitude change, but hockey smarts when it comes to when to drop the gloves and when to, be a pest.
And he'll be less likely to be penalized like he was in the OHL. The OHL has been cracking down on fights and on players playing that style of hockey. He's more of a throwback to the 90s in that he plays mean. When he hits to hurt. When he fights to hurt. It's kind of a throwback to those 1990s type defenders. And I mean, a guy like that in your bottom pair with that kind of jam, if he can figure out the speed of the NHL, I think that's a good pickup.
Yeah.
Eventually. But for the forwards, the big question is, where do you play Slafkovsky?
I know everyone wants him on a line with Suzuki and Caulfield. And that I don't mind that at all. But now you're throwing him into the fire by him facing the top lines every night. Because that's what unless St. Louis doesn't match lines, or he does the old like back in the 80s and 90s when they threw the third line out up against the top line when they could, because that was the defensive line. But I see Slafkovsky doing what Suzuki did, starting maybe on the third line and working his way up depending on how well he plays. I have no issue with that. I have no issue with him starting in Laval. I have no issue with him starting in the OHL with London, I believe it is. Windsor.
I honestly don't think that's going to be an option. It's either Finland, Laval, or Montreal.
Well, Montreal wants him to play in North America and get used to North American ice. So
more than likely Laval.
Laval.
If he's not going to be on the NHL roster, yeah.
And he doesn't need 9 games because he doesn't need. He can play more than 9 games if he wants. He can play 15 games, and they can decide to send him down to Laval. It doesn't matter.
At that point, his first year is being burned off either way because he would be playing pro in Laval. It's the 40 game mark that they have to look for, because at the 40 game mark in the NHL, that takes you 1 year closer to UFA.
Correct.
That's the mark to watch.
Yeah. But I mean, if he's killing it, if he's I don't say killing, like he doesn't need to be scoring, 30 goals, 60 points. He just needs to not look out of place in the NHL. He just needs to look like he deserves to be there. If he can do that, then he's going to stay on the roster and move his way maybe up to the first line with Suzuki and Caulfield. If not, I can see Drouin starting on that first line, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can see that. With Doc coming in once he's signed, I think I could see Drouin being up on that line. And with Doc, I think you're right. Monahan's probably going to be there on his wing. I think he's going to be on his wing to help out a little bit. On the other side, maybe Gallagher
or Anderson. Yeah.
I would prefer Anderson because he brings a little bit more speed.
Yeah.
And if you put Gallagher on that third line with Slafkovsky on the other wing, I think that's the mentorship you kind of want for Slafkovsky.
With Dvorak in the center as their third center. Yeah.
He'll cover the defensive side a little bit. And that way he'll ease Slafkovsky in, and Slafkovsky can watch what Gallagher does and kind of emulate some of that work ethic. I think he's already got some of that. He's clearly a freaking beast. I mean, he almost destroyed that bike in the first day.
Can you imagine a 6'3" Gallagher?
If that's what he turns into, heaven be.
Can you imagine that going to the net and being like Gallagher in front of the net?
I would say that I'm glad I'm not that goalie or defenseman.
Gallagher's size, you could kind of rough him up a little bit, but Slavosky's just going to be like, I don't know what you're doing.
You tickle ribs.
I will break
You
you.
silly little man. You so silly little man. All right. So I think that's pretty much it for this portion. What we're going to do is we're going to split up the show.
I just want to throw something out there about the fourth line. If this is our lines, your fourth line is Evans, Dadonov, and Huffman.
Well, Hoffman, I mean, he's a defensive liability. So if Dadonov and Evans can sort it out, great. Hoffman is going to be your power play specialist. They're going to want to jack up his numbers so they can get rid of him. Right now, I don't think anyone wants him.
Not with his $4.5 million contract.
No, with another year on top of it.
Yeah,
this is no Toffoli here.
So there's this going back to, I know you want to move on, but here's the situation. You have Hoffman, you have Druin, you have Monahan, you have all these guys you got to showcase. So they're all going to have to play top 9 minutes. Where there's going to be a lot of rotation going around with these lines. I think they might have one fixed line. That'll be Suzuki Coff. I think you'll have pairings like what Ducharme used to do. You'll have Suzuki always with Caulfield. You'll have Doc always with Monahan. Gallagher always with Dvorak, and Evans always with Evans will be the one that's probably going to have the rotating with Dadonov. Yeah. So, and then all these other guys will just rotate around depending on the game. They'll rotate around the other spots.
And the call-ups, the kids being called up back and forth, plug them in, plug and play kind of thing. Yeah, I can see that. So I think that pretty much does it for the 272nd episode. What we're going to do is we're going to split this up into 2 shows. The live on YouTube will continue, but for those of you listening to Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, we're going to end the show here. Be sure to check out the release following day because we're running short on time. So I want to thank everyone for listening to us so far. If you're listening to us online and not watching, thank you. We appreciate everything you've done. Be sure to check out all of our sponsors. And again, if you're talking about it, so are we. Okay, so that was 272. Not bad. It's a 50-minute show. And the reason, for those of you who are still watching us on YouTube, the reason we do it that way, most people don't want to listen to a podcast for like 2 hours. 30 minutes to 50 minutes, that's pretty much the window because we try to fit it into a commute time frame. So if you're listening to us on your drive into work, on the bus ride into work, that's around how much time most people take to get in. That's our thinking behind it. If you're listening, I've seen a few shows being put out that are an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Who wants to waste an entire day with us? That makes no sense.
Yeah, my wife doesn't even want to do that with me.
Christ, she's not even in the same province.
No. Lucky her.
True. All right. So we'll just jump into our next show now. We'll record the next episode. And for those of you who are still sticking around, thanks. You guys are clearly gluttons for punishment. So cool. Okay, here we go. And welcome back to Habs Unfiltered, episode 273. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvang, and I'm joined now by my co-host, Treg Wilson.
Hello, I didn't change my shirt.
It's uncanny. It's almost like we're doing it all in one day. All right, so for those, so we're recording live on YouTube and for you listening at home on whatever platform you listen to, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever it may be. We're pretty much on every single platform, including iHeartRadio. Um, if you can't see that, that's a big old heart shreg. All right. So this episode, we're going to talk about Carrie Price, what it means for the Canadians, and what it'll look like this season without him. So without further ado, Carrie Price will not play this year. He will probably not ever play again. And his money being on LTIR come the start of training camp opened up the Monahan trade that we talked about in the last episode. So my view on it, no one in either camp, be it the Montreal Canadiens or Carey Price's camp, is going to come out and say, this is it, he's not playing ever again, because then he's going to be forced to retire and miss out on $30 to $40 million in salary. And I don't know anyone who would turn that down just to say they're retired.
No, they're not going to come out and say it. I mean, Weber has pretty much essentially said he'll never play again, but he never said he's going to retire. I think Price will be the same way. So anyone who looks at it, and I've seen a lot of people slamming Price now because, oh no, he got hurt, and heaven forbid someone gets hurt. First of all, his salary 10.5 is 12% of the cap. It's really not the issue. The issue is all the money they put into these 30-year-old wingers on long-term contracts. That's the issue with the cap. It's not really Carey. Having one guy worth $10 million is not an issue. It's when you have 2 or 3 or 4 around $10 million that your salary cap becomes an issue. So let's just get rid of that. Second of all, as long as he's injured, or as long as he's not going to be playing, he goes on LTIR, which gives you cap relief. Doesn't give you more cap space. It just gives you relief of that $10.5 million, which you can use to acquire other assets during that time. So really, essentially, you kind of have that $10.5 million you can play with, but conditions have to be met in order to use it.
Yeah.
Having said that, this could turn into a Weber situation where if he's not playing next year, or they know he's not coming back, they can find a team who's looking for LTIR cap relief, or find a team who's looking to make the cap floor and trade off his contract.
Now, with that, teams are very careful in picking up those types of contracts, especially at the size that Carey Price's contract will be, because it's in the summer. The players are no longer on LTIR.
No,
you can put them in summertime LTIR, but it still counts towards the cap, and you can only go 10% above the cap. So it makes it harder to bring people in. So that's where things get a little bit iffy. And that's why right now the big question was, well, can they fit under the cap and blah, blah, blah. Chantal Machabée was on BPM Sports, which is the old 91.5 FM in Montreal. She said that Price will be at camp on the 21st of September, but he's there so that the doctors can check him out and then sign off on the LTIR. Players are not officially on LTIR for a season until team doctors and league doctors sign off on it at the start of training camps.
Exactly. So now, like you said, in the offseason, you go 10% over. And that's why I say a team looking to reach the cap floor, because then they don't really have to worry about the $10.5 million. They still have money, and anyone who's around the cap floor, they're not looking to sign big name free agents in the offseason anyway. I don't see them ever moving Price's contract, maybe in the final year, maybe, just simply because it's just too hard of I mean, Hughes moved Weber, so who knows? Maybe you can move it. But just seeing how it's 10.5, he's not going to play again. You're just using it for LTIR, and I look at it as like, well, Montreal can use that for LTIR. They can use that money. Now, mind you, next year they're going to have $18 million in cap space because of all the guys that
more
will be
depending
leaving.
on what they move out.
And the more, depending on what they move out. So they're starting next year. They're not going to be in a cap issue, especially with all the young guys that are probably going to start coming up. They don't need to fill the roster with free agents. So price really is a non-factor when it comes to, in my opinion, when it comes to cap going forward.
Yeah, he really isn't a factor for the Canadians at this point. With him going on LTIR, he's essentially, his career is done. The Canadians aren't being slowed down whatsoever by him.
No, not at all. It kind of happened at the right time because they're in this rebuild and they're not they're not saying, oh, we need to sign this guy to make that extra step. That'll be in maybe Price's last year of his contract. That's when it might come a little bit of a problem because they're like, okay, well, we want to bring in this free agent because he's 26 and he scored 100 points last year. You know what I mean? Like, we want to throw money at him and get him on our team to make that extra step. So really, cap wise, I don't see Price as a problem until year 4 or his last year of his contract, around there.
Yeah, and I've said this before between us, but I'm going to say it here. There's nothing in the rule book saying that Molson can't hire him on for 10, 15, 20 million dollars in a year to be a team ambassador or to work at the Molson brewery. He can retire, take that right off the top, and Molson can make sure he gets the money that he had signed for anyway. There's ways around it. With a team as rich as the Canadians, find a way.
And
play with it.
And really, his salary on the Montreal side is insured anyway, so they're not really losing anything at all. I mean, Price is going to get his pay, and then they're going to get the insurance. So this is the way it works.
No money out of his pocket.
No.
But if the cap situation is to the point where the Canadians absolutely need that space so that they can take another step, well, at that point, it's worth $10 million out of their pockets for a team that makes over $1 billion a year. Why not?
That's if they can't move the contract to some. If Roberto Luongo's contract can be moved, anyone's contract can be moved. So it's just a matter of who's willing to take it and will Montreal have to give up something to move it? That's the question. That's the question.
Now, my beer league team still needs a goaltender. The one we have now has 2 bad knees. We would love an upgrade to one with only 1 bad knee. Just saying, Carrie, if you're looking for a place to play hockey, a bunch of sailors could really use your help because our defense sucks. Oh my God, it sucks. Anyway.
Aren't you a defenseman?
No.
Oh, okay.
Looking at you, Gordo, and your 65 flex stick. Get a grow up sticks. Jeez. Okay, so back to reality. Carrie Price. Jeez, this has been going back and forth. I wrote about this last year, and this is about Carrie Price and his legacy with the Canadians. I honestly think he's a Hall of Fame shoo-in.
I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And he cannot get on that ballot until 3 years after his retirement. So we might be waiting 7 years before he can get in.
And that's fine.
Yeah. Before I move on to the number retirement thing, I want to talk about his last game, the one against Florida, and how he was acting. I mean, John Lou put out a tweet and he showed how Price was waving to the kids, and he always waved to his kids before games, but he spent a lot more time around them. His normal pregame routine was a little different because of that. And at the end of the game, the guys gave him the puck. And even after the game, he said, this might have been my last game.
Well, he did say he played it as if it could be his last game ever. He went to bed relaxed. I think he's accepting his fate. Now, Chantal Maccabee also said that they're nowhere close to looking at him retiring, but of course they're going to say that. He's probably going to need another knee surgery. Hughes doesn't see any way he can come back with just rehabbing.
And that's if he has any hope whatsoever of playing again.
Right. I do believe Price wants to play again. I do believe he doesn't want to stop playing, but I mean, I was 40 and I was going over to Czech Republic to play lacrosse, with a bunch of 20-year-olds, because in your mind, you're still healthy, and lo and behold, I blew my ACL out of my knee. So,
Yeah.
I just don't think it's there anymore. I think you're a goalie with hip and knee issues. You're 35. By the time you come back, you're going to be 36. Unless miraculously you repair that knee. And I just don't see a scenario where even if he does come back, it's going to be the same Carrie Price.
Because he said he didn't want to come back unless he can meet the standard that he had already previously set for himself.
Right.
Now, a Carrie Price at 50% is still better than 80% of the goalies out there, but for him, that's not enough.
No. And he said he wouldn't play any more than 50 games a season because he don't think his knee can take it. So right then and there, he's already, I want to play at this standard, but just not as much.
Can't play it that long. Yeah.
So he's already kind of accepting the fact he probably won't meet that standard. So, I mean, as a fan, I'm going to hold out hope that he comes back and he plays to 60% of what he was. However, as a realist and a hockey analyst,
according to some websites, expert.
Yes, according to yes, clickbait website, I'm an expert. Thanks, Tony. I don't believe he's going to be. I think you saw the last of Carey Price, and I'm perfectly fine with that. He went out on top, a big 10-1 win over Florida just the year before he got to the Stanley Cup Finals. It would have been nice if they would have won. I think that this whole thing would have been a lot easier. But they didn't, and that's okay.
That brings a question into mind. Weber and Price both pretty much done after that playoff run. How much pain were they in during that run? I mean, you think about the mental focus it takes to play through an injury and then to play it at such a high level in such a pressure situation and get to where they did. I mean, you got to respect everything they've done. They carried that team, a team that everyone thought would have been outside the playoff picture, all the way to a Stanley Cup final, and ran into possibly the best team ever assembled in the Cap era and lost. Had they played against the Islanders, because it was touch and go there for Tampa, the Islanders took them to a game 7. Had the Islanders won that, maybe the Canadians win a cup, and maybe this whole injury thing is an easier pill to swallow.
I think if that's, I think, all right, hypothetically think if say Montreal won the cup, Price doesn't play 5 games last year. He's done.
No.
He got his cup. Weber got his cup. We already knew Weber was done regardless. But I mean, there was rumors around that Weber couldn't put on his own skates. Like
not a rumor, it's been confirmed. He needed someone to help tie his skates.
Yeah. So I mean, and Price, you knew his knee was bad. You knew he had his injuries. But imagine, doesn't matter who they play, if they were fully healthy. Just imagine, I still don't think they would have beat Tampa. Tampa was just too strong. But you never know.
More than 5 games, though.
It would have been more than 5 games, I think. And I don't know. I don't like to think in hypotheticals because it didn't really happen, but I think everyone would be looking at this different if they won that Stanley Cup. If Price had won a Stanley Cup at some point, like maybe in 2014 when Kreider ran into him, I think that was their best chance to win a cup. I think they could have won that cup. And I think that's where everything started for Price, even though I think it was after that he had his best season ever. But Yeah. Anyway,
That was the beginning of the end for his injury concerns.
Correct. But as it goes for Price, legacy is going to go down as one of the greatest goalies in Montreal franchise history. You can argue if he was the better one, but I don't like to compare eras because it's totally different types of hockey. I would say for this era, he is the best goaltender, maybe overall.
Yeah. I mean, I know someone on ESPN said it was, and I don't want to give the name because I don't want to give this guy any freaking assistance or airtime, but he mentioned Lundqvist. Now, yeah, Lundqvist was great, but I think Price was better. I mean, in a head-to-head matchup, Price won every time.
And I think it was a Jay Fresh card between 2007 and 2022. Carrie Price has the highest goals above expected goals against, or whatever it is, save percentage or whatever, at 918.
Goals saved above expectation.
Goals saved above expectation at 918, which was 12 points higher than the next guy next to him, which wasn't Lundqvist. Lundqvist was like third or fourth. I think it's Vasilevsky. I don't know. Anyway, I'd have to go back and look at it. So right there, that just shows to me that over the last 15 years, Lundqvist is great. Don't get me wrong. Hall of Famer, great goalie, another super goalie that never won a cup. But I think Price was just better. I think Lundqvist was more consistent over a longer period, but he also had better teams in front of him. Carrie Price had 180-point score in his entire career on his team. One.
Yeah, I was going through it, and he only had 3 players hit 70 points or more.
Yeah. Alexei Kovalev was the only, and that was earlier in his career, the only player to score 80 points or more while on Carrie Price's team. And then you had Domi, Plekanec, and I think Kovalev was the other guys that scored over 70. So when you have that low of offense, yet your team in the years you've been there have 2 Eastern Conference finals, 1 Stanley Cup final, 3 division titles, 5 100-point seasons, and you only have 3 guys hit 70 points or more in that entire time.
And in that time, how many guys scored more than 30 goals? Eric Cole, Gallagher, Pacioretty, Kovalev.
That's it. And did any hit 40? Nope. Kovalev might have. Did Kovalev hit 40?
No. He had 38. Pacioretty had 39. Nobody hit 40 in his entire tenure in Montreal. 4 guys hit 30 goals. 3 guys had more than 70 points. It's not like there was an offensive explosion in front of him. He essentially carried that team. He was a franchise-defining player for the era.
Yeah, I mean, he leads he's the all-time Habs leader in wins. Mind you, he's played more. I think he's the all-time Habs leader in goaltender games played as well. So
yes,
yeah,
but still, he has the most wins.
He does. He has the most wins without a high offense in front of him.
Or there's been some good defensemen in front of him. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you have Weber, even PK Subban. I know people crap on his defense, but he had the puck up the ice a lot. Yeah. Markov, who I think should be in the Hall of Fame.
Josh Georges. I'm even going to say Alexei Emelin, because Alexei Emelin was a good defenseman.
Good, but I mean, I'm talking like guys who were really, really just next level.
Well, you got Weber, Markov. I'll throw PK Subban in there.
Pretty much it. It's been.
I mean, Markov. However, Markov alone made your defense better, because whoever played with him played better because they played with Markov. And Josh Georges kept PK Subban in check, so Subban could keep that puck up the ice because he didn't have to worry about defensive line, and so that's what made Subban's career so great in Montreal, because he had the partners with him that you could forgive his defensive liabilities because he had a backup. So
yeah, exactly. And this all brings me to the point that notice the lists that we're mentioning. They're not very long. It's a handful of players that were stitched on or grafted onto what Carrie Price can do. And he still has the most wins. He still helped carry a team. That's where this whole talk about retiring his number comes into play. A lot of people want to retire his number. Now, I get it. But the Canadians have 15 numbers already retired. So I think immediately he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's going to be up in the Ring of Honor around the Bell Center. He'll be in the Canadians Hall of Fame area there. They'll have a couple of, ceremonies to celebrate him. But to retire his number with 15 numbers already retired, I understand he was a generational talent. I understand that he did a lot of amazing things. But when you look in those rafters in Montreal, all those numbers that are retired, what do they all have in common?
they have a Stanley Cup, every single one of them.
At least one. And as harsh as it is to say, if the Canadians stick to that standard, he will not, absolutely will not have his number retired. Now, do they change that standard because, it's a different era? That's the question.
I don't think they do. Montreal's stuck in traditionalism, and I don't think his number's retired. I think they have too many numbers retired. I think this whole number retiring thing needs to stop. No, I mean, nothing, and it's nothing against Carrie. If they retire his number, great. I'll celebrate with everybody else.
Yeah.
Well deserved. However, if they don't, it's not hurting my feeling. I don't take it as a slight to Carrie Price if they don't retire his number. I really don't. It's just the way Montreal is. It's just the way they do things. If he would have won a cup, for sure, probably they retire it and they put it up there. I mean, it took him 27 years to retire Waugh's number. And he single-handedly won him 2 cups. Mind you, they also had a little bit of a
tiff
and a separation, but still.
Bob Gainey, it took them 15 to 20 years before they retired his number. And here's a guy whose play essentially gave birth to the Selke Trophy.
Yeah. I mean, you have there's still players back in the 70s and 60s that don't have their number retired that probably should.
Steve Shutt, Toe Blake.
Steve Shutt. Steve Shutt, definitely Steve Shutt. Like, how is his number not retired yet? Matt Snaslin, how come they haven't retired Matt Snaslin number? He was a top player of his generation at the time. I mean, I don't think Matt Snaslin needs his number retired, but anyway, I'm just throwing names out there. Andrei Markov, should they retire Andrei Markov's number?
People argue yes. I disagree. Now, I had this argument with someone recently while watching our kids play hockey in a hockey camp. And he was going on about how, they retired Lundqvist's number. And I said, well, it's, New York Rangers, when you look at their history, well-deserved. Lundqvist is a great goalie. Why not? But the standard to retire numbers is different in Montreal by virtue of their history. And unless they're willing to change that standard, there is no way they're going to retire his number.
I totally agree. I mean, like, you can't compare another team retiring numbers. Winnipeg is retiring Teemu Solani's number, and technically he wasn't even part of that team because it's the old the Atlanta team. Technically,
yeah, I get it, but still,
Jets, I mean, I don't have an issue. But each team has different reasons for retiring numbers. Toronto barely retires any numbers anymore.
No, they've got a couple, but they do what's the honoring of a number. They
correct.
Put the number up, but it's just honored.
And that's what I was going to bring up. So I'm a big Yankees fan, unfortunately, because they suck right now. and they have a monument park, is what they call it, in behind center field. They do have some numbers retired, but they also have monuments and numbers up there that aren't retired, but are in an, are honored because of what the great player they were. And I think that's what Montreal has to start doing, honoring their players in a different way than retiring them, to say, hey, we recognize what you did for us, so we're gonna, do this for you. And they do have that ring of honor there in the Bell Center. And I think that's the right way to go. Because at some point, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line on retiring numbers? With Price, again, I have no issue if they retire his number. I'm not going to be, it's more of me being realistic, saying I don't think Montreal does it. He doesn't meet all the standards Montreal needs for you to retire his number. I'm sorry, he didn't win a cup.
He did everything but.
Yeah.
And when you have a standard where you require someone to win a cup, doing everything but that one last thing means you don't get it.
Yep.
I understand, we're in the cap era now. There's more teams. It's harder to win, all of it. But if you look at statistically speaking, with the number of Canadian teams we have, there should be a Canadian team winning every few years. So the Canadians should have been able to win one in there. And it's not Carrie's fault if they didn't, because he did absolutely everything he could to drag a team of also-rans and then teams that had some really good pieces as far as he could. The issue is he was never given enough support. And that falls to the fact that the Canadians have never done a rebuild until now.
They should have, when Bergevin took over, now, whether it was Bergevin's call or Molson's call at the time, they should have done a complete rebuild. They really didn't have the problem. The problem was they had nothing in their cupboards. They had no draft picks whatsoever that had any type of potential. Yeah, they really didn't have much of a team. If it wasn't for Carrie Price winning 60% of his games, they never would have been. They would have had to do a rebuild anyway because it wouldn't have been any good. So the issue there was management did not put the right pieces in place at the right time, because Bergevin didn't start it till 5 years in, and then he started, oh well, geez, I got to start rebuilding this team.
He had no choice at that point.
And even then, he didn't do a full rebuild.
Because he pushed his chips all in there for basically that one Stanley Cup run. Right,
which probably might not have happened if it was a full season, because Price was gone most of that season, and you're relying on Jake Allen, and who was the backup then? I don't even know who the backup was. Lindgren. And they weren't gonna get you a playoff. Although Allen played good that year, don't get me wrong, but they weren't going to get you to a playoff spot. So yeah, that's unfortunately that's what happened. You can't go back and change history. You can say what if, could you, would you, whatever, but
that kind of points to how important timing is for a franchise to become a winner, because had Carrie Price been just entering the league now with what they're doing now, you could see a Stanley Cup in 5-6 years. But because he showed up at a time when the Canadians flatly refused to do what they needed to do to rebuild, and they were constantly doing patchwork to keep competing for a Stanley Cup playoff spot, because history of the team demands that you don't embarrass the team with a bad season. And look how that's worked. Did he end up with like 14, 15, 16th overall picks? Sometimes sometimes they're good, but a lot of times they're not. And you're not getting any star players in that range. Caulfield might be the only one that has potential to become a star player that they picked in that range.
And then when they picked in the range of bottom 5, you got Carey Price, and then you got Galchenyuk. And now, mind you, at the time of that draft, Galchenyuk was a top 3 pick. People seem to forget that. Yeah. People seem to forget at the time of that draft, Picking Galchenyuk third was not a bad pick. It wasn't. He just ended up being the player that they thought he was going to be. Just like Druin wasn't a bad pick at 3 in his draft, but he didn't end up being the player that everyone thought he would be. So
Yeah, I'm gonna say 3 words: development.
yeah, exactly. It wasn't Montreal's drafting that killed him; it was the development of those draft picks that killed him.
Now, in that vein, this year is a development year for a lot of guys, and part of that is going to be how competitive the team is. You don't want them playing in an environment where you're getting blown out 7-1 every game. You want them doing what they did in that second half under St. Louis last year, where they're in every single game. They may lose, but it's not because the goalie gave up 15 goals. You know, like it just, they need some decent goaltending. Now with Carrie Price completely out, it falls to Jake Allen and Semyon Montembeault. Now, last year, both had injury concerns as well. Montembeault had that hand injury. Allen, God, there's 3 or 4 different injuries he had over the year.
He had a concussion, then he had a groin, and then I think it was another groin near the end of the year that kept him out for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I think they're okay with Allen. If Allen can stay healthy, Allen's a solid goalie. Like he's not he's not going to steal you a game, but he's not going to lose you a game either.
And that's the kind of goalie that they need this season. I mean, they need Montembeault to step up a little bit. And I know Allen played hurt through most of the year. They need him to return to what he normally is. So last year, the Canadiens gave up a franchise record number of goals. I think it was like 315, 16, 17, somewhere around there. The save percentages on the goaltenders that they had playing were all sub 900. I think Allen was the only one above 900.
Yeah, he was 903 or something like that.
Yeah. So if the goaltenders, these 2 goalies, can return to their career averages, so Allen's career average is a 911. If he can get to 911 and Montembeault can get to, I think he's at 892, 893, something around there.
Yeah, he was 891 last year, so he's around there this year.
So if he just kind of stays where he's at, Allen, takes a little step forward, they're going to let in less goals, and the overall goals against will go down, and the team will stay as competitive as they were in that second half under St. Louis. If
I can see that
for whatever reason, or somehow with Robidas there with a defensive scheme, or the idea of keeping the puck in the other team's zone means they're shooting the puck less than yours, they find a way of cutting back on that league worst number of shots against per game. They can cut back 2, 3, 4 shots a game against. That save percentage increase looks even better. So if they can do those 2 slight changes, the Canadiens, I mean, they're not going to finish outside the top 10 in the draft, but at the very least, the games are going to be competitive, and the young guys will be able to play in these games and play in situations like trying to defend a lead with a minute left, or try to get that 1 goal with a minute left. Those key times that you really need someone to step up. You want to give them these situations so that they can learn.
Well, if you look at Montreal's forward group, it's really not that bad. Like you look at their forward group, it's I mean, you have a potential 35, 40 goal scorer in Caulfield, potential, I say. Suzuki's a potential 80-point guy. Gallagher, if he comes back to form, can get you 20, 25 goals. You have 20, 25 goals from Dadonov. You can get 20, 25 goals from Huffman. Slafkovsky, if he turns out to be the guy you think he's going to be, you got another 20, 25 goals there. So you get offense. You have a solid offense. You have a solid forward group, and you do have a group of fairly good defensive forwards. Gallagher, Evans, Dvorak, Dadonov, Suzuki. Anderson's not bad defensively.
Monahan, if he's healthy.
Healthy. Doc needs work. Caulfield needs work. I don't know about Slafkovsky. He played well defensively at the Olympics and that, but I don't know. what he's going to be at the NHL level. Huffman, you can forget about. Drew, and you can forget about. So they're not bad. They're not going to lose based on offense. I think their offense is going to be okay. The problem is you have too many defensemen playing in spots they shouldn't be playing in. Like,
yes,
Matheson and Savard should not be 1 and 2. Matheson should be maybe 2, and Savard should be 4 or 5. Edmondson's right where he should be. Edmondson's fine right where he's at. But then you have Schooneman or Barron playing with him. So you have a young guy, Schooneman. I was okay with Schooneman last year. I thought he played very well defensively.
As a third pairing guy, absolutely.
As a third pairing guy, but he's probably going to play second pairing minutes. That's the issue you have with your and then you have, of course, Harris, Gooley, or whoever you're going to put on the left side of the bottom three. And Weidman, the only two guys playing exactly where they should play are Edmondson and Weidman. So other than that, everyone else should not be playing where they're playing.
Now, I agree that's a problem. Everyone's playing up a little bit of what they should be. There, there's no first line guy. There's no first pairing guys on this lineup. But what is making me a little bit more hopeful for the future is the shift into the style of play of that blue line. Now, no one's a top pair guy, but there's a lot more puck movement, a lot more mobility. Hughes and Gorton are shifting this team over to a more mobile defensive unit that matches what the best teams in the NHL today have. Yeah. So that's going to be the focus. If they can get, that power play specialist, they can get a first pairing guy. This defensive lineup with all that youth, that with a little bit of experience, looks a lot better.
Well, I mean, there. Someone wrote an article with that. I'm not sure it was. Oh, right, it was me.
Yeah. Key up.
Yeah. So they're getting away from Bergevin built his defense based on how he played defense. And that was great for the 90s. That's what you built your defense around in the 90s. You had,
and honestly, a lot of those guys you need in the playoffs.
You do. And Bergevin's adjective was you had guys that got you to playoffs and you had guys that got you through the playoffs. And let's be honest, as good as Carrie Price was, he had 4 defensemen in front of him that were playoff ready defensemen. Sherratt, Edmondson, Weber, and Petrie. And they helped get him through the playoffs. You had that 4-pitch trident there that they broke a record for the least amount of power play goals against. I think they went 38 power plays before allowing a goal or something like that.
In the playoffs that year.
Yeah. So that's great. That's all great, but you have to get there and you have to change with the flow of the game. And that's something Bergevin had a hard time doing. Hughes and Gorton, however, they're not having a hard time doing that. They're like, no, we need puck movers. We need guys, but we need now the difference between a puck mover and a good defenseman puck mover is not Victor Mete. Victor Mete could move the puck, but he couldn't do anything else with it. When I'm talking about with the puck mover, I mean a guy that can move the puck, plus he knows exactly what to do with it when he gets in the offensive zone. And he has a little bit of defensive liability that he can actually play defense. Matheson still needs to work on his defense, but really Matheson is almost a clone of Petrie.
He essentially plays the same style of hockey.
He plays the same
have
style as
defensive
Petrie.
breakdowns.
Yeah.
But overall, Matheson is a good defenseman.
He is. And the difference is he's not just good between blue line and blue line. He can actually get into the offensive zone and know he has the offensive knowledge and he has the to know what to do with the puck when he gets in there. He knows when to pass, when to shoot, who to pass to and who not to. He has that vision. Victor Mete, great puck mover, no vision. Couldn't play defense. The Leafs are going to change him, however. They're going to rebuild him, and he's going to become the $6 million defenseman.
He's the next Galchenyuk.
He's the next Galchenyuk.
So who's he going to give the puck away to in the first round to make the Leafs lose?
If the Leafs make the
Ottawa.
playoffs.
Oh, Oh, wouldn't that be great? If he's playing against Ottawa in the first round, he gives up the puck to Ottawa, just like Galchenyuk did for Montreal.
2-0, and the announcer doesn't
poetic.
know, and the announcer won't know to call a goal or not because he's so shocked.
It'd be so poetic.
But anyway, that's the difference between a puck mover and a puck mover. You can have guys who can move the puck, but if they can't do anything with the puck, it's useless. And that's what I mean. You have Harris who can move the puck. Now these are guys coming up. Barron's going to be pretty good moving the puck. You would know more about that than I would. Arbor Jackeye can actually move the puck. Caden Gooley's not bad at moving the puck. Struble, if he ever signs and comes with Montreal. So all these guys, now mind you, Bergevin drafted a lot of these guys. So he did know that in the future, he's going to have to change the way he does things. But he didn't have a puck mover. Now, if it was the other way around, I dare say Bergevin would be drafting the 6'6" burly defenseman. But Norlinder, another guy who can move the puck.
Yep.
Problem with Norlinder is he can't play defense. He's like a Eric Gustafson.
Yeah, he's still learning the North American game. So I'm going to give him another year. Like last year was not a very good year. I mean, the pandemic that really threw a lot of people off. So I'm really going to judge him on this year.
He had a lot of injury issues last year as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he lost his job in Sweden. And anyway, it was a lot of mismanagement with Norlinder last year. So they have a nice group coming up that can do that. Gooley, however, to me is one, and I think Arbor Jackeye, they're going to be the defensive guys that can play. Gooley's going to be, I don't want to say a Weber clone, but he's going to play like Weber. He's going to be very reliable on his own end, and he's going to be just as reliable in the offensive end. Only more of a setup guy than a shoot the puck, wire the puck into that type guy. So the future is looking bright, I think, on defense. We just have to be patient with it.
Yeah, the approach that Gorton and Hughes are taking is it's more modern. They're using the analytics. They're using, they're just looking at it in a different angle. I mean, I get it. There was some success there with Bergevin, and I don't want to crap on him. This isn't a hate on Bergevin thing. He had success.
He did.
Over his 10 years, they made the conference finals twice, made a cup final once, won the division 3-4 times. I mean, he had some success.
You can't, my opinion is you can't sit there and say everything good about a person without mentioning things that they did wrong and vice versa. Right.
That's right.
Everyone knows I was a Bergevin. I didn't mind Bergevin as a GM. I like Bergevin as a GM. I thought his final 5 years were better than his first 5 years, even though he had more success in his first 5 years, minus the Stanley Cup final. Only because of the way he finally decided that we need to really do something with this team and change things around. That's why I liked the last 5 years. I thought he did a better, mind you, he was runner-up to GM of the Year 3 times. So it's not like he wasn't recognized by other teams or other organizations of the great job he did. However, he made mistakes. He did things wrong. He didn't modernize. He couldn't get that center. I mean, and again, I'm not shitting on him, but Kent Hughes got 2 centers in 1 year, 2 top centers in 1 year, and Bergevin couldn't get 1 in 10. So,
well, no, he did. Suzuki.
Yeah, he did, but I mean, that's it. And that.
Well, I mean, I've seen people crapping on him saying, well, he didn't want Suzuki. He wanted Glass, so we can't really give him credit for blah, blah, blah. But he got Suzuki.
Right. He actually,
day,
depending on who you listen to, it was Suzuki or Glass, and Bergevin at the time preferred Glass, but Vegas thought Glass had the more upside. So before you shit on Bergevin about Glass, Vegas wanted him just as much as Bergevin did.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what intentions are. Who did you get? Who did you trade for? Who did you draft?
He got the right guy.
And he's the GM. It falls on him. So
right.
all the mistakes are his, and all the successes are his.
Correct.
Because he is the guy. Now, I think that we're pretty much going to end it there. We covered quite a bit of ground. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, but if you're going to the gym and you want to look good as Matt Smith, you should get Liftoff Apparel from liftoffapparel.ca. If you use the code Unfiltered, you get 15% off. It delivers anywhere in Canada. It's great stuff. I wear it. Matt Smith should wear it because he'd look like a Greek god in it.
And he doesn't wear a shirt at the gym.
That's true. That's true.
He
And no one
with sweat.
And no one else can work out because they're too busy in awe at what he's doing. I'm kind of jealous because I know he's going to be more jacked than I am. So anyway, he's already prettier than I am. Now he's going to be more jacked. So and he'll be back soon.
Prettier.
I also want to give a shout out, say bravo Zulu to you, Matt Smith, on a job well done in Kuwait on your deployment. It was 100% success according to the CAF, and a lot of it is owed to you and your crew. And congratulations, good luck coming back. I hope everything goes well, and I can't wait to see you back on the show.
I think he's going to look amazing with that bar on his OEM. Amazing.
I'm still in awe.
Well, yeah. I'm still waiting to see him in this powder blue.
Yeah.
DUs.
I think we should all wear our DUs one day on the show. Well, we'll say that. We'll say that. And then when he shows up, we just won't.
Good idea. Anyone who wants that to happen, just put a comment in here on YouTube and let us know. Also, I want to pass on my thanks to everyone for listening. My thanks to those who have been watching throughout this live on YouTube. The comments that you've made, the emails we get, the interaction that we have with you on social media, we really appreciate that. You guys, I say this every episode, but you guys really make this fun. You help this show evolve. So I want to say thank you to everyone. And I want to remind you that if you're talking about it, so are we. And now it's just the live on YouTube that's left. We're going to sign off here in a minute. But now that, we don't have to worry about ratings or stuff, we can say whatever we want.
What?
It's secret time. It's the secret time. We should tell a secret.
Do we know if anyone's watching? Like, does anyone actually watch us on YouTube when we're?
Yeah. No, there's people watching right now.
Oh. I should have did my hair. Yeah.
My mom says hi, by the way.
But going back to Price, I don't think his number's retired at all. I really don't.
I agree. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. It's not going to, I'm not choosing this to be contrarian, because if I wanted to be, or, be popular, because if I wanted to be popular, I would have just said, yes, it's going to be retired. But I just don't see it.
I don't see
not
it
unless they
either.
change all the rules behind how to do it.
And I understand, like, people are actually getting mad on Twitter about it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't think Carrie Price cares if his number's retired. He doesn't seem like that type of person to me. He's going to get his recognition. He's going to get the recognition. He's going to get his Hall of Fame. He's going to get whatever. Maybe his number will be retired by Laval for what he did in Hamilton that one year that he played there.
I mean, he won the Calder Trophy, Calder Cup there. So yeah.
But I'm sorry, I get it, but I don't, and it doesn't. I don't care. I don't care about that stuff. So maybe I'm just disillusioned by it. But I don't think you need to retire a guy's number to show respect to him. Just show respect. No. That's it.
All right. So okay. I'm gonna work on putting this out as soon as I can. There's gonna be 2 episodes. For those watching, these episodes are going to be out in the next day or 2. We're going to stagger them a little bit, but you've already seen it. You've gotten the preview. Don't tell anyone that we suck. Let them figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
We need all the clicks we can get. This pays for beer.
Say we're really, really good as an inside joke. Best podcast ever. Hee hee.
Suckers. All right. Well,